And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, April 25th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCPodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that being said, let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. So, start off the show talking about round one of the NFL draft being tonight. I'll talk about some predictions that I have. Nothing too crazy. Well, I know yesterday I did bring up this week about a team trading up to get a quarterback. So I will that's one of the predictions, but also we'll go through some mock drafts and what experts have happening tonight, and I'll just give you my overall thoughts with what will happen tonight, what I think will happen tonight. So we'll get into all that. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the Lions extending a couple of players. They extended their wide receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown, as well as their tackle, Penei Sewell. So I'll talk about that in the second segment. Then in the third part of the show, talk about a couple things with the Cowboys. They picked up Micah Parsons' fifth-year option, and also Ezekiel Elliott did meet with them again, so I'll get into that as well. And then the final part of the show, I'll talk about, again, I just mentioned Micah Parsons. The Cowboys picked up his fifth-year option. The Steelers did not pick up Justin Fields' fifth-year option. So we'll get into that, and I'll give you my thoughts on it as well. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the draft. And, yeah, so the NFL draft is tonight. Starts at, I think, 7:30. So really looking forward to it. And, hopefully whoever's watching this, your team has a good first night. Depending on what team you root for, hopefully your team has a good first night of the draft when you are watching this. And the first couple of picks, I think we have a good idea of how they're going to go with the Commanders and the Bears with the number one pick. The Bears are going to take Caleb Williams, and we know this, and I've talked about this for weeks. And other shows have probably talked about this for weeks here on the GSMC Sports Network as well. But that's what the Bears are ultimately going to end up doing, is taking their quarterback. Because, well, that's what they need right now. Because they traded away Justin Fields, and they still have Tyson Bagent. So you need a quarterback, which they're going to take Caleb Williams. And, like I've been saying, Caleb Williams will be stepping into a good situation. The Bears are a team that I really have liked what they've done in this off season, signing DeAndre Swift and trading for Keenan Allen. I thought those were two great acquisitions. Well, the Keenan Allen one I like more, but and DeAndre Swift did have a good year in Philly, but getting Keenan Allen to be opposite of DJ Moore, I think that's huge, and Cole Kmet as well. He's becoming a solid tight end for them. So that's what the Bears are going to do, is take Caleb Williams. Now, could they throw a curveball at us and take one of the other quarterbacks? Yeah, but I think we know it's going to be Caleb Williams. And then with the second pick, the Commanders have it. They're not moving out of it. They were definitely taking some, they were getting some interest for it, of course. But they're going to stay at 2, and it seems like they're going to take Jaden Daniels from LSU. So the first 2 picks are the easiest ones, because then once you get to 3 with the Patriots and 4 with the Cardinals, now we might know who they would take at those spots, but the question is, are those teams going to move out of those spots, and are new teams going to trade up and replace them? Because if the Patriots stay at 3, well, they should take a quarterback. Now, my prediction was that the Cardinals are going to trade down, and I said the Vikings would trade up, and they would take J.J. McCarthy with that pick. Now, I saw some mock drafts that, kind of conflict that, because in some mock drafts, at least one that I saw recently, I forget whose it was, but it had J.J. McCarthy going at 11 where the Vikings are picking. So, and J.J. McCarthy actually said something interesting. So he was on the Rich Eisen show recently, and he feels like he's going to end up with the Giants. That, and he, spoke highly of Joe Shane and Brian Dable, and it seems like to him that they are the team that might have the most interest in him. So J.J. McCarthy could end up on the Giants. Now, again, I really just have no idea at this point because you hear Joe Shane and Brian Dable talking about Daniel Jones and how if he's healthy, he's going to be the starter. And again, both things can be true. Daniel Jones could be the starter. They draft a quarterback, and that quarterback sits behind Jones, and then he eventually takes over. So that both things could be true. But yeah, I don't really know. So, like I said, the first two quarterbacks going, it's going to be Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. Then it comes down to Drake Maye and J.J. McCarthy. And like I said, the Giants supposedly have interest in him. The Vikings, I know, have interest in him as well. It seems like both teams really like McCarthy. So it's going to be one of those two teams, I think, that ultimately ends up with him. Because if you look at, like I said, the Patriots, we'll see what they do. Maybe the Patriots end up taking him at 3, and then Drake Maye continues to fall, and either the Giants or the Vikings trade up to get him. Because you have the Cardinals, you have the Patriots, who I talked about earlier, so they're open for business, but you also have the Chargers too. The Chargers could be a team that trades down because they don't need a quarterback. I mean, what they need is a receiver, and I think that they should kind of stay where they are if they want to grab one. Because the Cardinals and the Chargers, I mean, if they want these top receivers, I mean, they could they could stay where they are. But, if you trade down to where the Giants are or where the Vikings are, I mean, odds are you're probably going to get at least one of these wide receivers. And you look at and I talked about the Chargers wide receiver group a lot, as well as, the Cardinals recently. Yeah, they need some help there. And this draft has a ton of receivers. So these two teams are going to get receivers one way or another. So potentially we could see the Cardinals and the Chargers, one of them, I think at least one of them is going to trade down. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But yeah, so J.J. McCarthy, he might end up with either the Giants or the Vikings, I think, when it's all said and done after tonight. And then, you got some other teams. I know that in some mock drafts with the Falcons, they got Dallas Turner, the edge rusher from Alabama, going there. And yeah, I kind of see them going defense because, offensively, with the weapons they already have at running back, at receiver, tight ends with Kyle Pitts, and you're hoping this is Kyle Pitts' breakout year with Kirk Cousins, they're probably going to end up going defense. So, and that seems to be the popular pick is Dallas Turner from Alabama going there. And, you also have, now going back to the quarterbacks, you got the Broncos and the Raiders. They need quarterbacks too. I know the Broncos traded for their franchise guy in Zach Wilson earlier this week. But, yeah, they're probably going to still have to, take a quarterback. And I guess it's going to be, Michael Penix or Bo Nix maybe. One of those two guys. I know I saw earlier, and I mentioned this, that the Raiders, they like Michael Penix, so maybe that's who they potentially end up with. Because right now you have Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, and I've said this, they're not the long-term answers. Now, Gardner Minshew, one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL, and he can start. So, again, another scenario where if the Raiders draft a quarterback, they could ease him into it, have Minshew start, and then you go to the younger quarterback at some point. So, we'll see what happens there. But, and you got teams that need wide receivers, outside of, the teams that I mentioned in the Chargers and the Cardinals as well. The Jets, I've been talking about them a lot. The splashy move is to take a playmaker, but the smarter move is probably taking a lineman. So, but I feel like they're going to go with taking a playmaker, whether it is Brock Bowers whether it's you take one of these receivers, which probably might be Rome Odunze if he falls to them and Brock Bowers gets taken. Also, I did see something, which, again, the Colts would have to, trade up probably, is, they didn't necessarily rule out trying to get Marvin Harrison Jr. because obviously they had Marvin Harrison back in the day with Peyton Manning. So that would be kind of cool if the Colts somehow ended up with him because they could use another receiver. That's another team that maybe could use a receiver, but again, they'd have to trade up to try to get him. So I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. So, but you got some other teams that need receivers. Like I said, the Colts, the Steelers need a receiver. The Chiefs, they might, I could see them drafting a receiver here. Maybe not in the first round, but maybe, in a later round. The Bills, I think they're going to be a team that drafts a receiver with their first pick. And again, they're a team that they let guys go. They traded people. I mean, they traded Stephon Diggs. So they need a receiver. And I think that's probably what they're going to end up doing with their first pick. And whether maybe they trade up and try to grab somebody. We'll see. But there are teams that need receivers. There are teams that need quarterbacks. I know when it comes to offensive linemen, in some mock drafts, you got the Titans taking Joe Alt. So we'll see if that ends up happening. But yeah, I mean, it should be a fun night. And looking forward to it. I think we're going to see teams definitely trading up throughout the night. And it's the thing I don't like with the draft is just how long it is. Because it's like, now again, you don't have to go so fast where it's over in a half hour. But it's from 7:30 to 11 or 7 to 11, whatever it is. It's just, it should not be that long. But that's because teams, they take their time and they use up the entire time limit. And then you get the pick and then you move on. When you got rounds 4 through 7, they're just going through, well, again, but that's because you got 4 rounds you're dealing with. But still, it's just, I think the draft should be a little bit faster. There should be a pitch clock on the draft where you got a shorter time limit than, because what is it usually? Isn't it like, what is it, 10 minutes, 5 minutes? I actually don't know off the top of my head, but regardless, they use up the entire time limit. But the other thing too is the draft has just become this big spectacle now. Where, like, in the past, it was just, all right, let's draft. Now you got people performing. It's become this big event. Which, again, it's the NFL draft. It is a big deal. But it's just really become this, like, worldwide event, and where it really shouldn't necessarily be that. But that's what the NFL does. I mean, look at what they do with the schedule. When they release a schedule, it's a big deal. And I love when the schedule comes out. That's one of the best days of the year. And the draft is one of the best times of the year too. But it's just, maybe we could cut it down a little bit. I mean, thankfully for me and my friends who I'll be watching the draft with tonight, our teams pick early on. We're both in the top 10. So, yeah, for a lot of people, like Bears fans, they see that they take Caleb Williams. And then they're like, all right, cool. Well, actually, shouldn't say that because they also have the number 9 overall pick too. So we'll see what they do with that pick. But yeah, I mean, for like Patriots fans, and again, this is for tonight. Patriot fans, Commanders fans, teams that have picks early on, their fans could just tune in, watch it, and say, all right, I'm good. I'm good for the rest of the night. Let me go watch some NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, and baseball. I'm good. Unless you want to stick around and watch the whole thing, which a lot of people are still going to do. But for some, they might just watch, say, all right, my team picked. I'm good. Let me go watch something else. And that's it. But, again, if you got the last pick, which is the Chiefs, and you got to stay up and watch the whole thing, I mean, you got to wait till 11:30. So, I don't know. That's just me. Let me know what you guys think about me complaining about this. It's, but that's my one thing, is just that it's the first night, it's the first round, it's too long. Got to shorten it up a little bit. Like I said, make the time limit a little bit shorter. But that's just me. But let me know what you guys think about tonight's draft, round one of tonight, the NFL draft. Give me some predictions if you have any. What teams could you see trading up, trading down? Let me know in the comments. So when we come back from our first break of the show, we're going to discuss the Detroit Lions, talk about them extending a couple of their players, and that's what we'll do when we come back from our first break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.